Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Rose Writes and I write and narrate Miraculous Ladybug fanfiction. Happy late Valentine's Day! Huge shout out to MAKU on Instagram for letting me use their amazing artwork. I am in love with this picture of Adrienne and Marinette and they have much more adorable art, so be sure to check them out. Please enjoy Forever Valentine. An 8-year-old Marinette laid on her bedroom floor cutting small heart shapes out of construction paper. Her feet flew about as she hummed to the music in her head. 15 hearts for all 15 of her classmates, even Chloe. She scribbled a personal note in each one, but for Chloe's she just drew a picture of a bee and wrote, "Be kind." She moved on to the next, still giggling at her bee pun. Marinette was mostly excited to give the cute blonde boy his Valentine. She had never gotten the courage to talk to him, but he always smiled at her and sometimes let her borrow his expensive colored pencils. She wrote his name in her best attempt at cursive, trying to hold her small hand steady. "Marinette?" Her mother's voice billowed from downstairs. "Oui, maman?" The little girl sang as her hand looped with her pencil. "You're going to be late for school, dear." Her mother, Sabine, peeked through the trap door, offering Marinette a raspberry scone. She grabbed it, taking a large bite, crust spilling out of her mouth. The little girl quickly grabbed her ladybug-shaped bag, stuffing the valentines in it, careful not to squish any of them. She scrambled downstairs faster than lightning. As she reached for the front door, a force pulled her back. It was her mother, holding the strap of her book bag. "Not so fast, little bug. Where's my hug?" Sabine wrapped her daughter in the biggest bear hug. Marinette struggled to free herself, eventually conceding. "Mom, I'm a big girl now, and you're gonna make me late on Valentine's Day," Marinette pleaded. Sabine released her, saying, Okay. You're just growing up so fast. Are you sure you don't want me to walk you to school?" She grabbed a jacket, placing Marinette's arms through it, then adjusting her book bag. "No, thank you. I'm extra careful. I'm big enough now that I won't bump into people." She yelled over her shoulder as she opened and shut the bakery door, running full force to school. Snow drifted from the sky, catching the light as it fell to the ground. Marinette stuck out her tongue, hoping to catch a few flakes. She skipped around in a circle, closing her eyes to enjoy the moment when she hit something, falling to the ground. She straightened her skirt as she jumped up quickly. She looked up from her hands, noticing a boy who stood shyly in front of her, holding her ladybug bag. They stared at each other for a long while, eyes locking. He awkwardly waved. "Hi." Marinette shook her head, pigtails shaking against the sides of her face. She reached out, grabbing her bag back from him. "Adrienne?" Her tiny voice squeaked out. Yeah. Are you okay? Did you hit your head?" he asked innocently. "What?" Marinette was confused. Her head felt fine, maybe a bit dizzy from seeing Adrienne, the last person she expected to see. No, I'm fine." "Oh, your knee is bleeding." He gestured down to her leg, no more than a small scratch. "Oh, does it hurt?" he asked, getting on his knees to get a better look. Marinette reflexively took a step backwards. "No, not really." He pondered. Daddy makes me take this with me everywhere just in case. He didn't want me to walk to school by myself, but Mommy helped me convince him that I'm a big boy now." Adrienne puffed out his chest, tugging on the lapels of his jacket. Without another word, he took out an alcohol wipe and a super colorful Band-Aid. Adrienne wiped her knee, being as gentle as possible. She winced when the cold wipe passed over her scrape. Marinette bit her lip and closed her eyes until... "All done." Marinette posed her leg in different positions to look at her new Band-Aid. "Wow, thank you. You should be a nurse." She realized this is the most she had ever said to Adrienne. Mostly she stared at the back of his blonde head, wondering what he was like and wondering if he would like her. He giggled, holding out his hand. "Come on, we're gonna be late." Without hesitation, Marinette grabbed his hand, throwing her bag over her shoulder. The snow had subsided a bit, just in time for the two to rush into school, barely beating the bell. "Marinette, why don't you share your Valentines next?" Her teacher stood at the front of the room, a pleasant smile on her face. Everyone loved Miss Bustier. She always smelled like flowers and brought cupcakes to school for every celebration. "Of course, ma'am." Marinette put down her half-eaten chocolate cupcake. She held her book bag tightly to her chest, knowing she needed to move. She stood at her seat, everyone's eyes fixed on her. The room had never felt so silent. The small girl could only hear the pounding of her heart echoing in her ears. What's wrong with her?" Marinette's arch nemesis, Chloe, spoke up. Chloe Bourgeois had made every day since kindergarten a living nightmare for pretty much everyone. Marinette took a deep breath, handing out the little homemade hearts. She gave Chloe hers last and begrudgingly said, "Happy Valentine's Day, Chloe." Chloe opened up the heart, spying the bee drawing, and scoffed, crumpling it up. "Be kind? I am like the kindest person ever." "No, you're not, Chloe. You're mean. Everyone here thinks so," Marinette said, placing her forehead no more than an inch away from Chloe's. "Settle down, girls. Marinette, back to your seat," Miss Bustier said sternly, the class spiraling out of control. Chloe sat, crossing her arms, looking smug as ever. "Whatever. I am nice. Right, guys?" No response. She stood, making eye contact with each student. "I said, right, guys?" She echoed, carefully enunciating each word as if the kids hadn't heard her before. The class filled with mumbled responses like, "Sure," and "whatever you say." "I'll go next," the brat said as she hoisted a heavy bag on her desk. Chloe passed out her Valentines, looking tacky and overly expensive. The best daddy's money could buy. All except for Marinette's. Chloe handed her what looked like a spare piece of cardboard. Scribbled on it was a short message. "To loser. You stink." Marinette stood rapidly, knocking her chair to the floor. She slammed her tiny hands on the table, shouting, "I am not a loser!" "Well, that's what the Valentine says," Chloe taunted. "It's barely a Valentine! It's trash!" Marinette screeched over Miss Bustier's attempt to gain control of the classroom. At that moment, the recess bell rang. Marinette ran out of the brightly painted classroom, holding back tears. She wasn't a loser. She had friends. She was a sweet girl. She knew that. She really did try her best to be nice to Chloe, but she made that impossible. Before a mob of every child in the school swarmed the playground, Marinette occupied the monkey bars. The metal stung her skin as the temperature seemed to be dropping by the second, but she didn't care. She effortlessly flipped herself upside down, arms outstretched, chanting "Om" over and over. Marinette faintly heard whispers of her classmates talking negatively about her, but she tried to pay no attention to it. Sand crunched, growing louder as small feet approached her. "Hi, Marinette. What are you doing?" Adrienne asked curiously. "Can't talk. I'm meditating," Marinette said seriously, eyes tightly shut. "What's that mean?" Her eyes flickered open, followed by Marinette quickly flipping herself down off the monkey bars, looking at them, the sun burning her eyes. "I don't know." She sat down on the frigid sand, knees tight against her chest. "It's just something I've heard on TV." She dropped her head down, a single tear escaping her eyes, until she felt Adrienne sit close beside her. Marinette looked up at him wide-eyed. She looked at him with tear-stained eyes. He smiled at her like she was the only girl in the world, and for a moment all of her troubles melted away. Her face flushed red as he stared at her. I got your Valentine, Marinette. I read it too. You did? I'm so embarrassed. She grabbed her face in both hands. She wrote a little note for him, but didn't think of him actually reading it. Oh no. What if he hated her now? She nearly started to panic, thinking of every possible worst-case scenario. Adrien, still smiling, took Marinette's face. I love you too, Marinette. Really? Marinette grabbed his hands, holding them a bit too tightly, nails digging into his palms. He winced a bit. She swiftly jerked back her hands. She couldn't believe that he would love her. After Chloe tormenting her for years, and occasionally claiming that Adrien was her boyfriend, Marinette thought she stood no chance. Of course I love you, silly. You're super pretty and super nice. Adrien helped Marinette up to her feet. She dusted her skirt and legs, cleaning herself of sand. So, Marinette, are you ready? Her head swiveled up to meet his eyes, one eyebrow raised. Ready? Ready for what? Adrien grabbed her hand, pulling her to follow him. Duh, Mom says that when you love someone, you get married. That's what happened with her and Daddy. They loved each other, so they got married. He explained as if it was the most obvious thing in the world. Marinette hesitated, her slender fingers finally closing in around his hand. So, are you ready? They stopped walking to stand in front of a girl their age, sitting on the swings, in the middle of sipping on a juice box. Hi, Adrien. Hi, I don't know you. She pointed at Marinette, adjusting her stylish glasses, taking another sip of apple juice. Marinette had never seen this girl before, but she knew they had to be friends. Sorry, Alia, this is my almost wife, Marinette. He introduced her with ease, still holding her hand. We want to be married. Can you officiate the wedding? He struggled through the sentence. Alia leaped off the swing set, whirling between the happy couple, arms draped over their shoulders. You forget who you're talking to, Alia said grandly. I am the mayor of this playground, and as mayor I say, let's do this. Adrien and Marinette turned to face each other, waiting for their ceremony to begin. Several children started gathering around, causing a commotion which only drew more attention. Alia cleared her throat and then with all of her might yelled, Everybody shut up! Silence across the entire playground. Thank you. Now, do you have the rings? Rings? What rings? Adrien asked, exchanging glances with Marinette, who shrugged in return. Alia sighed exasperatedly. Haven't you guys seen any wedding shows? My mom is obsessed with them, all of them. I know everything about weddings. No, I don't watch TV. Adrien shrugged. I practice the piano, though. Alia looked at Adrien with a blank expression. Wow, your life must be so sad. What about you, Marinette? Wedding shows? Sorry, no. Just cooking shows, mostly. Marinette said sheepishly. Alia rolled her eyes. Fine. Adrien, do you want to marry Marinette? He nodded enthusiastically. Yes, I do. Great, Alia remarked. Marinette, do you want to marry Adrien? She squeezed his hands lightly. Of course, I love you. They shared sickeningly sweet grins, making Alia cringe. Okay, great. You're almost married. Adrien, you may kiss the bride. Ew! Both kids released hands, jerking backward. My daddy says that boys have cooties. I don't want to catch the cooties, Marinette said, looking Adrien up and down, and then looking at her hands. Are cooties contagious? If she held his hand, does that mean that she has cooties now? As if reading her mind, Adrien said, Hey, I don't have cooties. Alia crossed her arms, happily looking at the chaos she caused. If you don't kiss, you're not really married. Marinette took a large gulp, closing her eyes. He pointed to her cheek. Adrien also closed his eyes, placing a quick peck on her rosy cheek. This was met with a large yuck from the watching children. "Congratulations, you are now married," Alia announced proudly. Confused third graders erupted into applause and screams. Marinette stared at her friends who surrounded her and her new husband. She may not have had a dress like all the fancy ladies on Alia's TV shows, but at least she wore her favorite skirt today. Adrien and Marinette linked arms, only to be stopped by Miss Bustier, obviously concerned. "Hi, ma'am, we're married," Adrien said, grinning ear to ear. Miss Bustier hesitated, looking between the two children. "That's nice, sweetie." She patted him on the head, observing the sea of children that had stayed to watch the previous nuptials. She clapped twice. "All right, children, recess is over. Time to go." She ushered children as they let out several groans of disappointment. Adrien and Marinette skipped together into the school and continued down the halls. "Hey, Adrien?" "Yes, dear?" Adrien replied with a response he often heard his father use. He sometimes said that was the key to a happy marriage. "Will you be my Valentine?" She blushed, heart pounding. "I'm your forever Valentine. This year, next year, and the one after that, too." He gave her a big hug before entering the classroom. They went their separate ways to sit in their seats. The blonde boy sat several seats in front of her. They started as strangers today, but now they are married. Her mom was right. She really was growing up fast. Thank you so much for listening. If you enjoyed this, please like and subscribe for more fan fiction that would really mean the world to me. As always, stay miraculous.